He is the one who had the beautiful book about Israel. It was basically a photo book that just showed you all the beautiful places our Lord and Savior had walked and all of the beautiful places you should see when you go to Israel. He is the president of Genesis 123 Foundation, Mr. Jonathan Feldstein. Hi, Jonathan.
Juan, it's a delight to be back with you. As long as you mentioned our book, Israel the Miracle, obviously want people to go to israelthemiracle.com, but I have to mention that this past week, one of the photographers who contributed some of her stunning photos that you just referenced, Laura Ben David, died here in Jerusalem at 56, and I would just like to give a shout-out to all of the people who are mourning her, and that's a lot of people here today.
That gave me body goosebumps. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It wasn't war-related, was it?
No, that's a good question. No, she'd been suffering from cancer and had been very public about her battle with cancer over the different kind of war over the last couple of years. But I was speaking with a friend yesterday or today, I don't remember, about how the last few weeks at least she'd been kind of under the radar. We weren't so close, but apparently she had been given that diagnosis. There was no other further treatment. And, it's just very sad. She was a remarkable woman, a fabulous eye through which to look at the lens at all of her photos, the things that she captured, and her generous heart, how she just said, I want to be part of your book. I'll give you any pictures you want. It was really amazing.
And that book is just amazing. Is it still available?
Absolutely. IsraelTheMiracle.com. And just because I'm in a good mood and you're my good friend, anyone who goes there today can use the discount code Jonathan10 and get 10% off.
Yeah, and I suggest you do it because it's hardcover, and you're going to find yourself losing a couple of hours just staring at the pictures. You are. I'm telling you. It's mesmerizing. All right. So Genesis 123 Foundation. Tell people what that is.
We are a U.S.-based nonprofit that builds bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. So our book is one of them. My podcast and webinar series, which we had a great episode yesterday called Inspiration from Zion, and we're doing a fabulous program to bring Christians to harvest olives here called Root and Branch. All of the information can be found at genesis123.co, but basically our passion and our mission is to build bridges between Jews and Christians. We have a lot more in common than even those significant things about which we disagree. And now, I think a few years ago you could say now it's never more important than it ever was, but now we really know. We've seen in the last 2 years the face of evil in so many ways, and Jews and Christians are the natural allies who are the in the crosshairs equally of this Islamic extremism that we're facing here in our backyards, but also spiritually as well. So that's my call, and I'm coming to the States next month for a few weeks. And someone said to me something about retiring. I said, no, goodness, no. It's way too meaningful. I'm never going to retire.
Yeah.
As long as God gives me the energy, I'm going to keep doing what I do.
Well, and ironically, I knew you were coming on today, so I wore my Star of David with a heart around it with a Christian cross in the middle, just to feel like, we have that connection. And I don't care. My son's godfather is a Jew. He's not even a Christian. He's Jewish. So, that's how entrenched I am with the Jewish people. I think the Hasidic Jews need to get off their butts and help a little bit, but that's another whole story. Let's talk about what's going on right now. There is some serious violence going against Palestinian Christians and Arab Christians because of the people who think they are the small Satan.
Yes, and it's the way you said it is appropriate because you got my press release last week when I wrote a little preemptively but a little prematurely at the same time that we decry any violence targeting Christians. And in fact, I believe that we as the Jewish people and the state of Israel have a responsibility and obligation to protect Christians specifically in the state of Israel and Christian sites. But as you noted, the people that we're talking about are Palestinian Arabs. They're not citizens of Israel. They're a very small minority in the Palestinian Authority, and they're under the heel of an. Okay, you can say the Palestinian Authority isn't Islamic; they're only Palestinian nationalist terrorists. But the same what's the word? The word is escaping me.
Stereotype.
The same prototype, the same symptom. The Christians are being persecuted. And what I don't know if I told you this since I sent that out and we set up this call, that there was an allegation that Jewish Israelis, which they refer to as settlers, and by the way, there was a statement issued by 3 Palestinian Arab priests in this small town in Samaria, a little bit north of where I live, stating that settlers, quote unquote, torched a field, and the fires came close to a cemetery and a 5th or 6th century, the remains of a 5th or 6th century church. The implications were that there was a deliberate fire set and it was by Jews. What happened a day or two after I sent that out, which I stand by, any violence at Christians is unacceptable, and we have that responsibility as Israeli Jews to be the guarantors of Christians and Christianity here in the land. I believe that. Yeah. But what happened is, apparently, because there was no evidence of it, it was just a letter from the 3 priests in this last remaining all-Christian village in Palestinian Authority. And what apparently became evident is that, no, it wasn't Israeli Jewish settlers who set the fire. It was, in fact, Palestinian Arabs. And because, as wildfires tend to do, they get out of hand and they end up blowing back towards the Palestinian Arab village. There's apparently video I've seen of Jews putting out the fire, trying to put out the fire, which that won't be documented.
Of course
nor
not.
Is it documented that Palestinian Arabs. My biggest concern of all of this, well, twofold. These 3 priests, I can imagine what it's like.
Why would they say that?
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know, if we were to pretend we were in the middle of a Godfather movie and someone were to say, if you don't do X, Y, or Z, we can no longer guarantee your safety. Palestinian Arab Christians are persecuted rapidly throughout the Palestinian Authority. It's also the case, by the way, among Christian Arabs in Israel, and that's a whole separate issue, and that needs to be dealt with in the state of Israel. But if you're the Palestinian Authority mafia, and you come to the 3 priests in this town, it sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, and say, if you don't make a public declaration that Israeli settlers were the ones who did this, with no documentation, we can no longer guarantee your safety, as if it was guaranteed anyway, number one. Number two, then they decided to have a whole conference in the town hall of this village called Taiba, where they brought in diplomats and other religious leaders to continue to perpetuate a fraud. The only question, which we don't know, we know what the facts are now, and it's sad, and it's terribly sad for these priests to live in a situation where rather than embracing truth, they would actually go out and perpetrate a lie. But they're persecuted. And on a human level, and I remember studying about the Holocaust in college, human beings don't always respond great to threats.
Especially of death.
Death, and there's an element of self-preservation. And if you're the priest of the Greek Orthodox or the Latin Orthodox, or I forget, Melkite, I think is another denomination, if you're the priest of these 3 communities, and 1, 2, and then 3 go down and say, okay, I'll sign it, and what was the hardest thing to me in all of this is that in their statement, anyone who wants to see it and see what I wrote, please contact me at genesis123.co. They wrote in their statement that this village in the New Testament is known as Ephraim. Now, where does the name Ephraim come from? That's the name of one of Joseph's 2 sons.
Right.
And they completely purge the Jewish connection to the land. They don't mind saying that in the New Testament, we used to be called Ephraim, but but Jews aren't really indigenous here and don't belong, even though Ephraim was one of the sons of Joseph. So there's a lot of theological Palestinian national shell game going on here, and I'm sad for that. I'd really rather it had been not representing all of Israel or all quote-unquote settlers by any stretch, but I almost would have rather that happened, that Israeli Jews did it, because that would have just been a straight criminal act.
Yeah.
But what's now happened is showing multi-dimensions of a problem that's really difficult to unwind. And I always pray, I think I've told you this before, my previous house, we lived across the valley from Bethlehem. And I would hear the church bells twice a day, 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening. And every time I would hear it, I would pray I would hear them the next day. Because Bethlehem, for instance, has gone from a population of 80 to 90% Christian to 10 to 20% Christian. They fled, they've been forced out, and I realized if, God forbid, there's ever a day that we don't hear church bells in Bethlehem, of all places, then that's a canary in the coal mine for a situation that's gotten way, way, way out of hand. Not that it already hasn't.
It's a condemnation of Israel that people don't talk about. All we hear on the alphabet and the major media here is shame on Israel, Israel's bad, blah, 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 Trump's the devil because he blew up Iran's nuclear silos. And, that's all we hear. And it's a constant drumbeat. And sadly, so many people don't try to seek out the truth. That's why I have people like you on the air, so that you're sitting there. You're in the middle of it.
Yeah. And I'm not dispassionate at all to the status of Christians here. We should also mention that this past week in Gaza, a church was hit, a Latin church was hit. The Pope has condemned it. The Prime Minister of Italy has condemned it. The Prime Minister of Israel has apologized for it. It's regrettable. It's a war, and buildings are hit and people are killed. And I think no country in the world does more to preserve a life, even in the midst of a war. But mistakes are made, and people are alleging that Israel did that deliberately. I said, that's ridiculous. Some 20% of our casualties, of the military casualties, are friendly fire. We accidentally killed 3 of our own hostages. Mistakes are made, and they're regrettable, but they're not. But a church being hit or someone being killed who happens to be Christian is not an indictment or indication that Israel is purging Christians or anything of that sort. But I will say this: we need to do better, and we can do better. And I hope maybe when the dust settles from the war, whenever that'll be, maybe we can put that on the list of things, how we do better.
Well, we have a minute left, and we could end this war if they would free all of the hostages, dead or alive, get it done, and then stop acting like the land is theirs, because it's not. And you could live in peace amongst them, but they will never stop trying to find another way to come at you. They're never going to stop plotting as long as Iran has the Ayatollahs in charge. So if we could just get the Ayatollahs out of the way and let the Iranian people live free like they want to, this would be a whole different world.
Absolutely, and the trickle-down effects to support terrorists in Lebanon. And in a couple of weeks, you and I may have something to speak about activities that may be taking place yet again in Lebanon and in Syria right now, where Druze and Christians are being attacked by jihadi forces, and in Gaza, which is still ruled by Hamas. All of that is the fruit of this evil Islamic regime in Iran. And so if we cut off the head of the octopus, hopefully the tentacles will dry up and die.
Yes, and Israel did bomb Syria. I'm out of time, but I do have Dr. Romrovsky coming on to talk about that, who is one of the leaders of Scholars for Peace in the Middle East. So I'll be talking to him about that bombing coming up. Jonathan Feldstein, President, Genesis 123 Foundation. Please get his book. And if you want to go help harvest some olives, you can do that too. What's the website once more?
Everything is at genesis123.co, Fawn.
Please go. Jonathan, God bless.
Thank you, Fawn. You
too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.